Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. In each episode, we share stories and experiences of active female role models and individuals who support the active pursuits of girls and women. Our goal is to encourage and inspire girls and women to be active for a lifetime, to reach their goals, and to break new barriers in sport and life. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative in the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. The mission of the Active Women's Health Initiative is to optimize health and promote physical activity and wellness for girls and women across the lifespan. If you enjoy this podcast, you can make a donation to the Active Women's Health Initiative at uky.networkforgood.com. Your contribution helps us empower all girls and women to find their inner athlete and become athletes for life. Regina Lewis currently serves as a project manager in the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture and conducts research evaluating the impact of policy and physical activity and nutrition programming outcomes in childcare settings. Regina earned her bachelor's degree in human nutrition, master's in nutritional sciences, and is pursuing her Ph.D. at the Martin School of Public Policy and Administration at the University of Kentucky. Regina is interested in expounding on research that examines systemic patterns of inequality that reverberate in the modern Black experience and contribute to disparate outcomes such as the racial wealth gap. In her spare time, Regina enjoys pulling semi-trucks, pressing logs overhead, and training to compete in Strongwomen competitions. Welcome, Regina. Thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, Dee.
So let's jump right into a topic that I know is near and dear to your heart. Could you tell our audience about Strongwomen competitions?
Yeah, absolutely. So Strongwomen competitions are amazing. It's where you and a host of other people come together and expend all of your energy and strength trying to lift and move really heavy objects. So typically, competition has about 5 different events that you'll compete in, and oftentimes these are like 4 or 5 hour competitions, but they're really cool.
So tell me how you got involved in this community.
Yeah, so this is actually a multi-tiered story. So lots of different pieces to the story, starting really back in November of 2020, when we were in the lockdown phase of the pandemic, so before vaccines had started having to roll out, and most of my interaction with other humans was all virtual. So I would spend time on FaceTime with one of my good friends, Dominic Maxwell, who lives in South Carolina, and he planted the seed that my body was perfect for strength sports. So we would watch documentaries and YouTube videos of people like C.T. Fletcher and Ronnie Coleman, who are really big names in kind of the fitness community. And these were guys who inspired him and motivated him on his fitness journey. So we would watch these together. And he was the first person that in my life, really, who encouraged me to be stronger instead of smaller. So during one of those calls, he told me that he thought I could go far in the strongman, strongwoman world. And I said, you know what? I think you're right. I think I'm going to try it. So that was kind of the first tier of the story. So after that, I started working out at a local gym here in Lexington called Fit and Fierce Studios, from basically January through March, just trying to get back into a consistent routine of working out. And in March, my PhD advisor, Dr. Raj Darolia, encouraged all of us advisees to swing big and do something out of our comfort zone, and try something new. So I followed a bunch of strong women on Instagram, and I ended up reaching out to the 2020 America's Strongest Woman in the middleweight division. Her name is Gabby, and she actually lives here in Kentucky. So I said, hi, I'm new to the sport. I think it's amazing. I have no clue where to get started. What advice will you give me? So she was awesome. She sent me just this well thought out message with some great tips. And the first tip was to find a gym and a community to be a part of. So I was like, okay, that's awesome. Now I got to find a gym. So I put out just a Instagram story that said, do any of my community know of strongman gyms close to Lexington where I can go and kind of check out this strongman thing? and two people reached out and said there's this great gym in Frankfurt with a coach named Davey McCann. Every weekend he hosts classes from novice all the way up to pro division. So I reached out to Davey, and he too was very amazing. He told me what to expect and what to bring to class. So I showed up on a random Saturday in March of 2021, and I've been training and or competing every single weekend since then. So I think the story of how I got involved in Strongwoman is kind of this perfect picture of the community. People hear that you're interested, and then they'll do everything in their power to get you connected to the right resources and just offer any wisdom that they've gained along the way. So that is my story from November till now, end of September 2021.
I love that story. There's so many good pieces there that really involve other people being integral in helping you and supporting you, and just being willing to reach out and provide support, right? Be open about getting resources for you, pointing you in the right direction. There's so many things about a new activity that are scary or different or just unknown, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm curious about how you had the courage to really jump into this very different new world, right? It's not like you just started working out, like you jumped into this world that is pulling semi trucks as one of the activities. So where did you get that courage and conviction?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think I'm just the type of person that likes to try things at least one time. So if somebody makes a suggestion and I look at it, I'm like, that's really cool. I'm the person that says, I want to try that instead of I can never do that. So when my friend said, hey, I think you'd be really good at being strong, I was like, I think you're right. Let me just try it and see. And this is something that's consistent throughout my life. So jumped in. We'll talk about this, I'm sure, at some point with other sports that I've played. But when I came to college, I jumped in and tried out rugby, which is like a random sport that
Yeah.
most people don't think of. So doing Strongwoman, traveling to different countries solo, I just get an idea and I have to try it. So that's something that gives me the courage, but also just asking myself the question, instead of like, what if this goes really badly? Like, what if this works out really well? And that just gives me like an extra boost to go ahead and try it. So
I love that. And I think I love that you've joined me for a podcast, but I'm sad because people won't get to see your face light up when you talk about it, because every time we talk about strong women, your face lights up. So tell me what you love about Strongwomen Competitions.
yes, so it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to get excited about something that you love and talk about it all day long. The absolute best thing that I love about the sport is the community. So I'll probably talk about this over and over again. But I train with ladies who have been in the sport for more than 7 years. My coach Davey, he's been involved with strength sports for I think over 18 years. But as soon as you step in the gym, like no matter if it's your first day or if you've been lifting weights for 20 years, you become adopted into this family where all of the women and all of the men are quick to share tips, and there's this wealth of wisdom that is just poured out. People are quick to give you tools that you need. So my first day of training, I came in with tennis shoes, t-shirt, and shorts, and had like none of the equipment that I needed to try these implements. And people were like, "Oh, try this belt," or like, "Here's some straps, try these things." So it's just a community of people where men and women are so excited to help you become the best and strongest version of yourself. It's the most encouraging, responsive, and welcoming community that I have ever been a part of. And every week, there's an opportunity to try something new, to challenge yourself, like pulling a semi truck or deadlifting a car or holding up 150-pound pillars for as long as possible. So I know you came to one of my competitions, and I'm not sure if you saw that event with the Hercules hold.
I didn't see that one. No, I
But
wish I would have.
yeah, with the sport though, you get to do these extraordinary things with a group of people who are just compelled towards growth and longevity. And I just absolutely love that about the sport.
So what does your daily or weekly training schedule look like?
So that is a great question. I started programming or like actual structured training with my coach about a month ago. And what that entails is 3 days a week in just a conventional gym, focusing on different body parts, and then one day a week doing kind of strong woman training where I focus on using the implements. So about 4 days a week I'll train, and then usually start out with some light cardio, do some warm-up sets, and then go into my weightlifting routine. So that's what my routine looks like.
Awesome. And I'm sure it's helpful to have somebody guiding you through that process too, to make sure you're prepared to do these crazy physical events.
Absolutely, yes. Having a coach it makes a world of difference. So I went into my first 3 competitions. Having trained like on the weekends in Frankfurt, but just having somebody like watch your technique, you send them videos, they give you feedback, and help you really to lock in on technique and form and accessory work, which makes like your events just so much more powerful. That it's a wonderful experience.
So what goals are you working towards now?
Within the sport, my short-term goal is to qualify for a national bid within the next 2 years, and then that will allow me the opportunity to progress so I can compete as America's Strongest Woman and then compete on the World's Strongest Woman stage. So I would love to be able to say that I have done that by the time I complete my PhD, so fingers crossed, within the next 4 years. And then outside of strongman, my goal is really just to become well-versed in the public policy realm. So that's my area of focus with my studies, and then be a catalyst that makes the world more safe, transparent, and equitable. So those are my top
Whew.
goals at the moment.
I applaud you for all of those, because those are not small goals, all of them. And doing them together, I think hope gives you some balance and perspective.
Yes.
So in what ways does your participation in Strong Women impact other areas of your life?
Yeah, great question. So historically, I have found that I'm more engaged with school and work when I'm involved in a consistent activity or a sport. So knowing that I love going to strong women competitions or strong women training and competitions on the weekends means that I have to manage my time really well, so I can get in the gym and do the things that allow me to constantly be surprised at what my body can do. So that alone is therapeutic, right? So to see yourself pulling a semi truck for the first time, or to lift the weight of a human above your head, these are huge mental boosts that make me feel like I can do anything in the entire world, and that makes it easier to kind of silence fears and try new things. So training and competing, it's changed the way that I've just formed narratives in my head. So with my own self-talk, I'm more accepting of like, I'm in the process. The first day, I'm not going to be the world's strongest woman, but over time, with consistency, I can be stronger today because of the work that I put in yesterday and the day before that. So that's helped me, yeah, participating in strong women competitions has impacted my life in that way. I've also learned to celebrate my progress, like no matter how small the steps are. With strength sports, that progress is very tangible because you can see yourself either lifting heavier weights or doing more repetitions at a weight. And in my last competition, I did 3 competitions in August, which was madness and crazy, but so much fun. But in the last competition, there was a semi truck pull off, and that was my first time ever putting a semi truck, like getting harnessed up to a semi truck and pulling it. So I pulled it against the best of the women and then against the best of the men, and I won. So my teammate Amber, she is this amazing lady. She's a master's athlete. She did all 3 competitions with me in the month of August, and she made sure that everyone knew that I was the truck pull queen. And she encouraged me to tell everybody that I spoke with that week of my success. So through her and an extension of the sport, it just encouraged me to celebrate small wins and big wins, to take up space, like to not feel like I have to be smaller or confine myself into a smaller bubble, but also to ask for help and to ask for what I need. Because in the sport, there's so many different techniques and events that you're not going to come in as an expert. So you have to be able to ask those things. So it helps me just to overcome fear, because I know that I want to get stronger, I want to do better. And to do that, I have to rely on my community who has knowledge and wisdom that they can share. Also, just with the goal of becoming stronger physically, you try to do whatever you can. So that includes eating well and eating often. So if I don't eat enough calories during the day, it makes it really hard to work out. Trying to stay hydrated, prioritizing sleep is huge, and making sure my body's rested and it can recover, and then managing stress. Those are all pieces that I've learned just from being involved with strong women and competing in competitions.
Yeah, I love that's so interesting that all the trickle down effects of, you have this competition that you're really hooked in, but if you're going to do well at that and you're hooked in that, then it means you have to do X, Y, or Z in the rest of your life. So, so many good life lessons there, and also just other health sort of trickle down effects from that.
Yeah, it's all connected.
So let's talk a little bit. I mentioned your research interests at the beginning and the introduction, and you've talked about being a PhD student. Could you just talk about what you're studying and what you're passionate about in your professional world?
Yeah, so by day, I am a full-time on-site project manager. I work for two research projects housed in the Dietetics and Human Nutrition Department at the University of Kentucky. So I work closely with Dr. Courtney Luking, and me and you actually work together on a project with two specific studies that both focus on the childcare setting across the state of Kentucky. Um, and we do that in collaboration. One is in collaboration with the University of North Carolina, and then another is in collaboration with a multitude of partners here at UK. So that is a lot of fun. And then I'm also a full-time PhD student. So I'm in my second year in the Martin School at the University of Kentucky studying public policy and administration. I have a deep interest in the economics of inequality, specifically in regard to the racial wealth gap and the role of Black entrepreneurship. So my work surrounding health policy in childcare settings actually translates really well to my research interests in my PhD program because they're both about policy, implementation, how it impacts people, and then if it does it in an equitable way. So that is what I'm studying and involved with outside of Strongwomen Competitions.
Wonderful. So, jumping back to thinking about how you got to where you are from a kind of physical and overall health standpoint and competitions related to strong women, what kind of activities did you enjoy doing before you got there?
Yeah, so growing up, I played sports. So I played volleyball in high school. I threw shot put and discus. Played rugby in college. I love just things like reading, game nights, traveling. So, like I mentioned earlier, love to travel solo, just hop on a plane. Typically, I'll go solo, but join a group somewhere.
Mhm.
So right before the pandemic, I was able to travel to Indonesia and China and Ghana, and I think I've hit my 24th state officially. So I want to hit all 50 states. Love that travel piece. I love numbers and nerding out about budgeting. Like that gets me excited and going. So I was a financial coach for a few years in my community. I love dancing, and I realized that probably sounds like a lot. But again, I'm the person that's like willing to try anything at least once, and that just makes life fun for me to see what all activities I can try and enjoy.
So, our Active Women's Health Initiative is really interested in especially the promotion of health and physical activity for girls and women. And, I see you as someone who is a great example, who is willing to try all these different things to find something you enjoy. What advice or tips do you have for people who maybe haven't found that thing they enjoy yet about how to do that?
Yeah, my biggest tip is just to try new things, even if it's just once. So you may be surprised at what you end up enjoying the most. But just if you think something sounds cool, give it a try. Also, I would say seek communities that are welcoming and encouraging and that challenge you to do hard things and try new things to become this stronger version of yourself, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And take risks. Ask questions, reach out to others if you don't know the answer. If you don't know how to get involved with something, like reach out and ask somebody. That worked really well for me
Mhm.
when it came to strong women. So be willing to take that leap of faith, ask a question, and see where that courage can take you.
So you've mentioned a few times, that the idea that the strong women community has helped you to learn to take up space, to it, not feel small and to really get stronger. I think that's such a cool idea and such a powerful feeling. Could you just talk about how it's helped you to do that?
Yeah. So um, I think a big piece of it is that you come into a space and you do things that you just never conceived of doing, right? So the first time I went to a Strongwoman training or a Strongwoman class, like I was pulling a truck. um, Earlier that day, it had never crossed my mind that like, oh, today I'm going to pull a truck. So I think just trying new things and surprising yourself at like what your body can do really encourages you to go further. So if I see, oh, I can pull a truck, like what else can I do? What else can I lift? What else can I pull? What other things is my body naturally good and gifted at? So I think that just that process of exploration and curiosity of like how far can I push my body to the limit is something that gets me in the mindset of trying new things. And then when you do it, like you can't help but celebrate because it's something that it's a feat that you never thought like even crossed your mind was imaginable. So yeah, I think that answers your question, but if not, let me know. I can rephrase.
Absolutely. So the other thing that came through loud and clear today as we talked was this idea of community and finding your community and making sure that it's a supportive one. When you, and it's not lost on me that this community you found during COVID, and I'm wondering if you think there's any connection between those two things, being in a pandemic and really seeking that community when we were all kind of isolated at home.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I feel like I was plugged into at least two communities pre-COVID, and plugged in like pretty heavily. They weren't necessarily physical communities, but it was places where I felt like I belonged. During the pandemic, a lot of that broke down. I had two roommates who were living with me before, and one moved to Texas, one moved to Florida. So it was like an isolating time. So finding something to connect to absolutely helped. I'm not sure if I probably would have still tried it if it wasn't a pandemic. It's hard to go back and say like, oh, all of these stars would have aligned to get me there. But I think we are built for community. We're made for community, and we're always seeking it. We're always seeking a place where we can feel like we belong. And Strongwomen just happens to be a place where anybody can come and thrive and be good at something and feel like you belong.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today, and I'm wondering what are the one or two takeaway points that you are hoping our audience will remember?
Yeah, this has been great. So thank you again so much for having me, Dee. One thing I want the audience to take away is that your body and your natural talents and passions and desires are a perfect fit for something. So if nobody has ever told you that, let me be the first person to tell you that. But also just take a risk, try something new, go and explore, and find out what your new magnificent obsession may be.
I love it. Beautiful advice. I thank you so much for your time today, and always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, Dee.
Thank you for listening to the Champions of Active Women podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and the Sports Medicine Research Institute within the College of Health Sciences at the University of Kentucky. This episode was produced by the Faculty Media Depot. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share with your social networks, or simply tell a friend about us. If you want to help us sustain the Champions of Active Women podcast, donate to the Active Women's Health Initiative at uky.networkforgood.com. For up-to-date information about our initiative, follow us on social media at UKAWHI. Thank you for joining us as we empower all girls and women to become athletes for life.